Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we are finally tackling the question of who to invest in. Thanos, Odin, or Dormammu. Which one is the best? They all cost the same amount, guys. They're all very prohibitively expensive. So I do want to start off by saying if you're a new player, dream on, or just put it on the back burner, because you're not going to be able to get Thanos or Odin or Dormammu within, less than 2 or 3 months, even if you're a dedicated player every single day. It's just not possible. Now, before we get into the actual discussion of which one of the three I think is best, we do have to address Doctor Strange. Nothing has changed. That rhymes. That's great. Doctor Strange is still the top dog. He's number one. There's no question about that. I think if anyone is making that argument that they're cherry picking on certain aspects of a character, I think when played manually, Doctor Strange is unequivocally the best character in the game for every single game mode. Having said that, there are certain things that Thanos, Odin, or Dormammu excel at a little bit more than Doctor Strange. But Doctor Strange has everything. He is the ultimate utility belt, and he's just number one. He's front and center. So PSA, guys, if you're thinking about one of these four to invest in, you absolutely must go for Doctor Strange first. After you've got Doctor Strange and you want to set your sights on a new goal, a new shiny toy to add to your collection, you want to ask yourself, thank you for the Dimension Rift. I did update my NVIDIA software, so it has a different look to it now. We can call that a channel update for 20k subs, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, I digress. If you want a new shiny toy and you're deciding between Thanos, the bearded Odin, and the flaming-headed Dormammu, I'm going to try to make your decision a little bit easier by giving you guys my opinions and my thought processes on all three of the characters. I've had enough time to play with Dormammu, especially in Extreme Alliance Battle. I've had time to play with him with upgraded gears. As you can see here, he's pretty decked out. He's not maxed, but even my Odin is not maxed right now, and neither is my Thanos. So I think it's a pretty fair comparison overall. Excuse the lack of gears on my Thanos. I just never got around to it, and I don't really need to anymore. But which one of the three should you invest in? So let's look at it first from the different game modes. As far as all of the PvE content goes, story mode, special missions, daily missions, villain siege, world boss even, world boss invasion, timeline, co-op, and Shadowlands, they're basically the same. They're all extremely dominant. Thanos, Odin, and Dormammu are all extremely good top tier characters for all of those different game types and game modes that I've mentioned. They can all clear world boss extremely quickly. I would say that probably the fastest one is Odin, second fastest is Dormammu, and third fastest is Thanos, but they're all under a minute. So you're kind of splitting hairs here, and I don't think anyone would pick, one over the other because they can clear world boss 5 or 6 seconds faster. As far as clearing regular game content, I do have to tip my hat to Odin. He is the fastest clearer for autoplay in the game. All of his skills deal these like wave piercing attacks. It's kind of like an obliteration wave, and it doesn't have like a range to it. It just keeps going forever as long as the stage has design space. Because of that, Odin is the best clearer, so he does immediately rank up a bit higher than some of the other characters on this list. So right away, Odin gets a little notch up on Thanos and Dormammu. As far as Shadowlands, because that's a pretty important game mode, I think that both Dormammu and Thanos gain a little bit of an edge over Odin because they're both villains. And as we know, villains is a pretty premium tag. There are fewer villains in the game than heroes, and there are a lot of villain-only Shadowland levels that you need to clear. And that's why trying to clear Shadowlands 25 stages with 0 Black Order characters is actually extremely difficult. It's more difficult than doing a solo clear of Shadowlands, which I've done. For that reason, I think Thanos and Dormammu edge a little bit up towards Odin. So they're pretty even at this point. And I want to keep making that argument and trying to clarify that and make that crystal clear for you guys, because there isn't a lot of wiggle room, I think, between these three characters. I don't think you'd be wrong to go with any of them, but I want to give you the breakdown of all of the different modes that I have experience with and that I have thought, pretty deeply about, to give you guys as robust an opinion as possible. Now, the biggest separator, I think, between Odin, Thanos, and Dormammu, and the reason why I didn't make this video sooner, is because of Extreme Alliance Battle. In Universal Supervillain Day, you have the ability to choose either Thanos or Dormammu from the three that we're talking about, And then on Universal Hero Day, you have the opportunity to choose Odin. Now in Odin's case, he is front and center, the #1 option, unequivocally, no questions asked, for Universal Hero. He is the strongest Universal Hero in the game, and he's arguably the second strongest hero in the game, period. So for that reason, Odin takes the cake. He immediately gives you the best in-slot character for one day of Extreme Alliance battle. Now, will that change? Will the weekly schedule rotate and suddenly we don't need universals? I don't know. I cannot foresee the future. But for now, if anyone asks you, or if you ask anyone, who should I get? Who's the best for Extreme Alliance battle universal superhero? You're going to hear Thor's father's name thrown around. As far as universal supervillain, however, we do have a choice between Dormammu and Thanos. Now, unfortunately, Thanos does not deal enough damage in a fast enough amount of time. He is not considered a burst DPS character, so he actually struggles quite mightily to get a high score in Universal Supervillain Day. He can top out at around 100, maybe 120,000 on a solo, but that pales in comparison to the almost 250,000 points that you can get with someone like Corvus. Now, keep in mind that Corvus does need to be paired with Thanos and Proxima in order to reach those heights because of striker bonuses, because of team-up bonuses, and because of that kind of purple co-op-ish button that you can press to do the 3-team team-up attack. But it still bears keeping in mind that Odin is not the top universal supervillain for the day. Even Supergiant with Ebony Maw can clear much higher numbers, you know, close to, if not exceeding 200,000, whereas Thanos cannot. Thanos does not deal his damage in high burst, so he suffers for Universal Supervillain Extreme Alliance Battle Day. So there's a clear pecking order that we can establish based on that. We can establish that Odin is #1 because there is no doubt in my mind that there is no better universal superhero than Odin. And then Dormammu is #2 because we do still have Corvus. Now, it's a little bit complicated and it gets a little bit, you know, technical here, but you don't actually need Thanos. It's preferable, but you could substitute Thanos for someone like Ronin. But you'd still need Proxima to come in and strike for that extra damage. So you're still looking at a combined cost, if you get Proxima and Corvus, of 8,800 black antimatter, because it's 4,400 for each of the Black Order characters, and you're multiplying it by 2 because you have 2. In that case, Corvus and Proxima equal out to the same cost on base resources as Dormammu. I think the gold is more, but that's kind of, you know, making the equation too complicated. But because of the fact that there are alternatives to Dormammu, and because of the fact that a lot of people, even newer players in the game, have farmed for Proxima by now, or have farmed for Corvus by now, it's not a pressing issue. It's not so necessary to go out and get someone like Dormammu versus someone like Odin. You know, if you have Black Bolt tier 2, you can crack 100,000 in Universal Superhero, but you can more than double that with Odin. That's a huge jump. You're not gonna see, at least initially, a huge jump between Corvus and Dormammu for Universal Supervillain Extreme Alliance Battle Day. And without showing you guys content, because it really wasn't that interesting to watch when I recorded it, I do want to give you guys my thoughts on Dormammu for Universal Supervillain Day. I actually struggled a lot to get a good score with him. My score with Corvus right now sits at about 180,000, and I struggled to match that score with Dormammu. Keep in mind, I do have pretty strong cards. Keep in mind, I do have Dormammu now pretty, you know, leveled out. I don't have any Uru on him yet, but that's about the only thing I'm missing. I have a pretty good offensive obelisk, you know, 37% fire damage, 180 attack increase, that's big. I re-rolled his ISO 8 set to an offensive set. It's not fully awakened, but I don't think that's going to account for much on my score. And I got all of his skills to level 3. Even with all of those improvements and tweaks, I still had a difficult time. And I compared some of my runs to some of the runs that other YouTubers and other people, thank you for the Dimension Rift, have posted, and the thing that I noticed as the most glaring weakness of Dormammu is the lack of attack speed. And here is where I'm going to make the crux or the really meaty part of my approach for choosing Odin over Dormammu. And the reason for that is Odin's attacks are already very fast in terms of their animation. You don't need a long time with Odin to get through all of his attacks. They just animate very quickly, even with a low attack speed. I only have 5.5% attack speed on my cards. As you can see there, 5.4%. That's what Odin's attack speed is at. I have the same thing for Dormammu. However, I don't find it that difficult to approach, not get exactly, but I can approach or approximate some of the highest scoring runs for Odin with my Odin that other people do with, you know, capped attack speed of 130%. However, I cannot with Dormammu. I need that attack speed desperately in order to be able to compete, because Dormammu's animations are actually pretty slow. They're pretty sluggish, and if you don't have the attack speed for it, you can't cancel out fast enough. You can't return to the ground fast enough because he hovers for all of his animations. So then you get punished by meteors, and you actually end up dying. I died more than once with Dormammu, and I know that sounds unbelievable because he comes back to life, evanescence. I actually died twice more than once. So wrap your heads around that, guys. So with all of that being said, although it looks like Dormammu is going to be #1 for Universal Supervillain Day, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that people are going to figure out how to eclipse Corvus's score with Dormammu. He does have a higher potential than Corvus, absolutely. I cannot shake the fact that it seems to be a much more high requirement. There's a very high bar that you need to reach before you can take full advantage of Dormammu's kit, whereas Odin kind of comes ready to play. He, out of the box, you can play with him. Even if you have weak cards, he's still going to do a lot for you. And so for those reasons, also for the fact that we're going to go into a couple other things here, Odin actually has a pretty meta-relevant leadership. It's relevant against Doctor Strange. It's not as good as Wasp's, but it does the job, and it does protect against other CC effects, whereas Dormammu's leadership is basically useless. On top of that, Dormammu, to be effective most often, does require an energy or ideally a fire damage leadership. So that is going to limit the number of game modes where he can actually shine to his full potential. For example, Universal Supervillain, he will not have the right leadership. Hela is the best that he can get here because you don't have Satana as she's a hero, and you don't have Red Skull or Red Hulk, sorry, as he's combat and not universal. On top of that, guys, because Dormammu's attacks are mostly flame, they're mostly fire damage, as you can see, 4 out of 5 deal fire damage, he becomes very susceptible to characters who have high fire resist or who have immunity, like certain Shadowland stages, like Ghost Rider even. A lot of Hellstorm has a lot of fire resist, so he basically gets down to one attack that he can do consistently. Even Inferno now has fire immunity, so there are already ways to defeat or counter Dormammu, whereas there's no real way to counter Odin. What are you gonna do? This big fucker is gonna hit you with his sword, and you're basically gonna die. He does like 60,000 damage with one shot. He makes himself immune. He pulls up a bubble for all of his teammates. I just think overall it's pretty obvious to me now, the more that I think about it, although it was difficult to see at first, that Odin is just overall a stronger character. He's easier to use, especially if you're not yet a veteran or you're still working on your cards and your alliance and stuff like that. And he provides overall more utility in his leadership, in the fact that his third skill, his 3-star skill, is applicable to the whole team and not just you. So you can use that in World Boss Invasion. You can use that in other game modes that may be rolling out soon, like maybe there's an Alliance one coming out perhaps that could have some kind of Alliance member, dueling or some kind of team up thing there, where having something that all of your allies can use as a guard would actually be super useful. Now, I don't have any experience with Alliance tournaments, so that's the only game mode that I can't comment on, but I don't think the 99% of the player base that plays the game and doesn't play Alliance tournaments really cares about that. But I'll try to find out more about it if you guys want. But in the end, guys, I do think that if you want to go for someone and you are interested in getting the most out of the character for different game modes, then your first option should absolutely be Odin. After Odin, then you can start to think about, well, do I want a very strong leadership and a very classic character like Thanos? Or do I want someone who is going to excel more and have a higher potential in certain situations, but not all, in someone like Dormammu? In my final thoughts, guys, I will say that Dormammu was very frustrating to play in Timeline. I actually intentionally went up against him with my own Dormammu, Odin, and Doctor Strange team, and I did die twice to Dormammu, who revived and then immediately did his 5th skill and killed me, and I couldn't dodge that because it was in an iframe. So you can see there my 2 losses on my 49 and 2 were because of that. Thank you for the Dimension Rift. As well, guys, I do want to say that there are certain situations where, despite the fact that he has less burst DPS, Thanos is actually more useful than Odin or Dormammu, or in some instances even Doctor Strange. And the reason for that is his 5th skill, his most iconic skill, Cosmic Drop, has a very, very long iframe. It's a very long skill animation, and it deals its hits in long separated attacks. So because there's such a long delay between the first hit and the last hit, and because each hit is still substantial enough, using Thanos' skill effectively, the Cosmic Drop, you can enter the Cosmic Drop after triggering, for example, your opponent's invincibility shield, and you can actually kill them because Thanos' attack will last longer than the 5 seconds of the invincible obelisk proc or whatever. Now that isn't always the case if you have, for example, maxed out attack speed, but it is something to think about and something to consider because that is one of Thanos' strong suits. He has a lot of iframes and he has very, very long iframes which keep him protected for a very long time, which can help him bypass some of the strongest and most signature defensive abilities like obelisk procs and like triggerable immunities that characters have. So I wanted to leave you guys with those final thoughts. As I said before, I think the top dog has to be Odin, guys. If you're looking for someone new to set your sights on, I think Odin is the man to go to after Doctor Strange. And then after that, it's kind of a toss-up between Dormammu and Thanos. If I was absolutely forced to rank them, I would put Odin number 2. Dormammu is a very close 3rd, and then Thanos is a little bit lagged behind as the clear but, you know, inferior 4th. But as always, guys, it's a community, it's a talk. I want to know what you guys think. How have you handled the new characters? What do you think of these badass native tier 2 monsters that we have in, you know, Dormammu, Thanos, Odin, and Doctor Strange? Which one is the best? Which one is the coolest to you and the most fun to play? And let me know, guys. So, of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.